My name is Harriet, and I am 62 years old. The morning after my only daughter's wedding should have been filled with joy and celebration. Instead, my new son-in-law showed up with a stranger in a suit, slid papers across my table and said, "This house is ours now. Sign here." I just smiled. Before I share what happened next, let me know where you are watching from. Hit like and subscribe, and stay with me, because this story has a twist you will not see coming. Let me take you back to where this all began, because to understand what happened that morning, you need to know what this house means to me. I live in Charleston, South Carolina, in a Victorian home that was built in 1920. This house has been in my family for 4 generations. My grandparents bought it when they were newlyweds, scraping together every penny they had. My father was born in the upstairs bedroom, and so was I. Every corner of this house holds a memory, a piece of my family's history that cannot be measured in dollars. My husband Harold and I raised our daughter here. We spent 30 years together in this home, fixing the creaky stairs, painting the shutters, planting roses in the backyard. When Harold passed away 10 years ago from cancer, I thought about selling. The house felt so empty without him, but I could not do it. His presence was everywhere in the workshop he built in the garage, in the reading nook by the window, where he spent his Sunday mornings in the garden, where we used to sit together watching the sunset. The house sits on a corner lot in a historic neighborhood. Over the years, the area has become quite desirable. Real estate agents have knocked on my door more times than I can count, offering numbers that made my head spin. $1.2 million, they said. Maybe more in the right market. I always told them the same thing. This house is not for sale. It will never be for sale. I paid off the mortgage 15 years ago. The house is mine, free and clear. I worked as an elementary school teacher for 35 years, and between my pension and Harold's life insurance, I live comfortably. I do not need the money. What I need is this home, these memories, this connection to everyone I have ever loved. My daughter Meredith is my only child. She is 34 years old now, smart and kind, and everything a mother could hope for. After she graduated from college, she got a job at a marketing firm downtown. She has done well for herself, climbing the ladder, earning promotions. I always thought she would meet someone nice at work, settle down, give me grandchildren to spoil. But the years passed and Meredith stayed single. She dated here and there, nothing serious. She always said she had not found the right person yet, and I never pushed. I wanted her to be happy, not just married. There is a difference, and I had seen too many women my age trapped in miserable marriages to wish that on my daughter. Meredith and I have always been close. After her father died, we leaned on each other. She came over for dinner every Sunday, helped me with yard work on weekends, called me every night just to check in. She told me once that she wanted to keep the house in the family forever, that she would never sell it, that someday her own children would play in the same backyard where she learned to ride a bicycle. I believed her. Why would I not? She was my daughter. My life was peaceful. I had my routines, my garden, my 2 cats, my weekly book club, with the ladies from church. My best friend Gloria lives next door. She has been my neighbor for over 40 years, and after both our husbands passed, we became even closer. We drink tea together every afternoon on my porch, watching the world go by, talking about everything and nothing. I thought I had reached the quiet chapter of my life, the one where nothing much happens except the gentle passing of seasons. I had made my peace with that. I was content. I had already drawn up my will with the help of Harold's old lawyer, Samuel Bennett. Everything would go to Meredith when I was gone. The house, the savings, the antique furniture that had belonged to my grandmother. It was all hers. I trusted her completely. I had no reason to think anything would change, no reason to suspect that the peaceful life I had built was about to be torn apart by a man I had never met. Then Meredith called me one evening, her voice bubbling with excitement, and told me she had met someone. His name was Derek, and she thought he might be the one. 8 months before the wedding, Meredith introduced me to Derek for the first time. She had been talking about him non-stop for 2 weeks, gushing about how charming he was, how attentive, how he made her feel like the most special woman in the world. I wanted to be happy for her, I really did. After all those years of watching her come home to an empty apartment, I wanted nothing more than to see my daughter in love. But from the moment Derek walked through my front door, something felt off. He was handsome, I will give him that. Tall, with dark hair going grey at the temples, a strong jaw, and a smile that seemed practiced. He wore expensive clothes, a crisp shirt, and designer shoes that looked out of place in my old-fashioned living room. He brought flowers for me and a bottle of wine that he made sure to mention cost over $100. Derek worked in real estate, Meredith told me. He had his own company, dealt with commercial properties, investment deals, that sort of thing. He talked about himself a lot during dinner, dropping names of neighborhoods and developments, numbers and percentages that meant nothing to me. But what caught my attention was how interested he was in my house. "So this is the famous family home," he said, looking around with an appraising eye. "Meredith has told me so much about it. Victorian right, original hardwood floors." I nodded, watching him. He walked to the fireplace, ran his hand along the mantel. "This tile work is incredible. You do not see craftsmanship like this anymore." He turned to me with that practiced smile. "It must be worth quite a lot these days with the market the way it is." I felt a chill run down my spine. Most people, when they visit someone's home for the first time, they comment on the decor, the photographs, the warmth of the space. They do not immediately start calculating its market value. Derek kept asking questions. How long had I lived here? Was the house paid off? Had I thought about what would happen to it when I was gone? Each question was wrapped in casual conversation, but I could feel the intent behind them, sharp and probing. Meredith did not seem to notice. She was too busy gazing at Derek with stars in her eyes, laughing at his jokes, touching his arm. She looked happier than I had seen her in years, and it broke my heart because I already suspected that happiness was built on lies. After they left, Gloria came over. She had seen them arrive and stayed up late, curious about the new boyfriend. "Well," she asked, "what do you think I did not answer right away?" I poured us both tea and sat down heavily in my chair. "He asked about the house," I said. "A lot. Wanted to know if I owned it outright, how much it might be worth." Gloria's eyebrows shot up. On a first meeting, I nodded. "That is not a good sign, Harriet. That is not a good sign at all." Over the next few weeks, I watched and listened. Derek came to dinner several more times, and each visit confirmed my suspicions. He always found a way to bring the conversation back to the house. He asked about property taxes, about the neighborhood's development plans, about whether I had considered downsizing. Once I caught him measuring the living room, with his phone pacing from wall to wall and tapping at the screen. "Just curious about the square footage," he said, when he noticed me watching. Professional habit. I smiled and said nothing. But inside I was taking notes. Meredith was blind to it all. When I tried to gently raise my concerns, she got defensive. "Mom, he is in real estate. Of course he notices these things. It does not mean anything." I did not push. I knew that if I pushed too hard, she would only cling to him tighter. So I kept quiet and started doing my own research. I asked my nephew Tyler, my sister Patricia's son, to look into Derek. Tyler works in information technology and knows his way around the internet. Within a few days, he sent me what he found. Derek had filed for bankruptcy 5 years ago. His real estate company was barely operational, just a website and a rented mailbox, no real office, no employees, no recent transactions. He lived in a cheap apartment on the outskirts of town, drove a leased car, and had a trail of debt that stretched back a decade. This man had nothing. Nothing except charm and a willingness to use it. I printed out everything Tyler found and locked it in my desk drawer. I was not ready to show Meredith yet. She would not believe me, not without proof she could see with her own eyes. I needed to wait for Derek to make his move. 3 months after they met, Derek proposed. Meredith called me crying happy tears, saying yes, 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 and all I could do was congratulate her and promise to help with the wedding. The engagement was fast, too fast, but I held my tongue and started making plans of my own. 1 month before the wedding, I heard something that changed everything. It was a Saturday afternoon. Derek and Meredith had come over to discuss wedding details. Meredith went upstairs to look for some old family photo albums she wanted to display at the reception, leaving Derek alone in the living room. I was in the kitchen preparing lemonade when I heard him talking. At first I thought Meredith had come back down, but then I realized he was on the phone. His voice was low conspiratorial, and something made me stop moving and listen. "Do not worry," Derek said. "Everything is going according to plan." I pressed myself against the wall, barely breathing. "The old lady loves me. She has no idea. Once we are married, we will get her to sign the house over. She is too old to manage it anyway." My blood turned to ice. "Give it 6 months, maybe a year. Then we sell and split the profit." He laughed a cruel sound that I will never forget. "This place is worth over $1 million. Easy money." I heard footsteps on the stairs and quickly moved away, busying myself with glasses and ice. By the time Meredith came back down, I was smiling and offering lemonade, as if nothing had happened. But everything had changed. That night, I could not sleep. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, my mind racing. Derek was not in love with my daughter. He was using her to get to me, to my house, to everything my family had built over generations. And if I did not do something, he would succeed. My first instinct was to tell Meredith immediately, to show her the bankruptcy records, to tell her what I had heard. But I knew how that conversation would go. She would accuse me of being jealous, of not wanting her to be happy, of making up stories to sabotage her relationship. She would choose him over me, at least until she saw the truth for herself. No, I needed a different approach. The next morning, I called my sister Patricia and told her everything. She was furious, ready to drive down and confront Derek herself. But I calmed her down and explained my plan. Then I called Samuel Bennett Harold's lawyer. He had handled our affairs for decades, and I trusted him completely. When I told him what was happening, he sighed heavily. "I have seen this before, Harriet," he said. "Men like this target widows, single women, anyone with assets and vulnerability. They are predators." "What can I do?" I asked. "We protect your assets," he said. "We take the house off the table entirely." Over the next 2 weeks, Samuel and I worked together in secret. We created an irrevocable trust, a legal structure that would hold the house outside of my personal ownership. Patricia and Samuel would serve as trustees. I would retain the right to live in the house for the rest of my life, but I could not sell it, transfer it, or give it away. Neither could anyone else. The trust was airtight. Even if I wanted to sign Derek's documents, they would be worthless. The house was no longer mine to give. I also updated my will. The house would only pass to Meredith under specific conditions, conditions that excluded Derek entirely. If she divorced him, or if he died before her, she would inherit. Otherwise, the house would go to charity. It was a painful thing to do, putting those conditions on my own daughter's inheritance. But I was not punishing Meredith. I was protecting her. She just did not know it yet. I told no one about the trust except Patricia and Samuel. Not Gloria, not Tyler, not anyone who might accidentally let it slip. Derek needed to believe that his plan was working. He needed to make his move to show his true colors in front of Meredith. Only then would she see him for what he really was. The wedding was 4 weeks away. I smiled and helped with preparations, picked out flowers, and approved menus, acted like the happy mother of the bride. But underneath, I was ready. I was waiting. It was cruel in a way. But sometimes protecting the people we love means letting them get hurt. Sometimes the only way out of a trap is to spring it and survive. The wedding took place on a Saturday in September in the backyard of my home. Derek had insisted on it, and now I understood why. He wanted to hold the ceremony on the property he planned to steal. He was marking his territory. The day was beautiful, I will admit. Clear skies, a gentle breeze, the garden in full bloom. We had set up white chairs on the lawn, an arch covered in roses, everything a bride could want. Meredith was radiant in her gown, a vintage lace dress that had belonged to my mother. She looked so happy, so full of hope, and I had to keep reminding myself that this happiness was built on sand. Derek played his part perfectly. He smiled at the altar, said his vows with convincing emotion, kissed his bride like a man in love. But I watched his eyes wander to the house during the ceremony, calculating hungry. I saw him glance at the windows, the roof, the wraparound porch. He was already imagining the sale. During his toast at the reception, Derek raised his glass and said, "I am so grateful to become part of this family and this beautiful home." He said home before family. No one else noticed, but I did. Gloria sat beside me, squeezing my hand under the table. "Something is wrong with that man," she whispered. "I can feel it." I know, I whispered back. "Just wait." The reception went late into the evening. There was dancing and champagne and laughter. Meredith glowed with joy, and I danced with her. Held her close, told her I loved her. Because I do. I always will. No matter what Derek had planned, no matter what was coming. Meredith was my daughter, and I would protect her until my last breath. The guests left one by one. Derek and Meredith were staying in a hotel downtown for the night, their honeymoon planned for the following week. As they drove away, Derek leaned out the window and called, "See you tomorrow, Mom. We have some things to discuss." His smile was too wide, too eager. He thought he had won. I went inside and cleaned up the last of the champagne glasses. Then I sat in Harold's old chair by the window and waited for morning. I barely slept that night. I kept thinking about what was coming, running through the conversation in my head. I knew Derek would act fast. Men like him are impatient. They cannot wait to claim their prize. The sun rose over Charleston, golden light spilling through the windows. I made coffee, fed the cats, watered the plants. Normal things on a day that would be anything but normal. At 9 o'clock, the doorbell rang. I took a deep breath, smoothed my dress, and went to answer it. Derek stood on my porch, and he was not alone. Beside him was a man I did not recognize, middle-aged, wearing a grey suit and carrying a leather briefcase. Derek's smile was triumphant, practically radiating satisfaction. "Good morning, Mom," Derek said. He had never called me Mom before the wedding, and the word sounded wrong in his mouth. "This is Martin. He is a notary public. We have some paperwork to take care of." I stepped aside and let them in my face, carefully neutral. They settled in the living room, Derek in Harold's chair, like he already owned it. Martin the notary sat on the couch, looking uncomfortable, clearly just there to do a job. Derek opened the briefcase and pulled out a stack of papers. "Meredith and I have been talking," Derek said, sliding the documents across the coffee table toward me. "We think it is time to get your affairs in order. You are getting older, and managing this big house must be difficult." I said nothing, just looked at the papers. "This is a deed transfer. Derek continued. It puts the house in Meredith's name. Well, our name. As her husband, I will help manage it. You can still live here, of course. Nothing changes for you. We just want to make sure everything is secure. Secure. That was a nice word for what he really meant. I picked up the papers and pretended to read them. They were exactly what I expected. A complete transfer of ownership effective immediately. My signature would hand over everything my family had built to this man who had known my daughter for 8 months. Derek leaned forward eager. It is really the responsible thing to do. You do not want the house to get tied up in probate when, well, you know. This way everything is clean and simple. Martin the notary shifted in his seat. He was starting to look nervous, perhaps sensing that something was not right about this situation. I set the papers down and looked at Derek. Really looked at him. And then I smiled. You want me to sign this? I said. It was not a question. Derek nodded, his eagerness barely contained. It is for the best, for everyone. I pushed the papers back across the table toward him. I am afraid that is not possible. Derek's smile flickered. What do you mean? This house is not mine to sign over. He laughed a short, confused sound. Of course it is. You have lived here for 60 years. Your name is on the deed. Not anymore. Derek's face changed. The charm drained away, replaced by something harder, colder. What are you talking about? I stood up slowly, walked to the antique desk in the corner, and unlocked the bottom drawer. Inside was a folder containing all the documents Samuel and I had prepared. I brought them back to the coffee table and laid them out. 3 weeks ago, I said I placed this house into an irrevocable trust. The trustees are my sister Patricia and my lawyer Samuel Bennett. I retain the right to live here for the rest of my life, but I cannot sell this property. I cannot transfer it. And I certainly cannot give it away. Derek grabbed the papers, his eyes scanning frantically. This is not possible. You cannot do this. Actually, I can. I did. He looked up at me, and for the first time I saw the real Derek. The mask was gone. His eyes were cold, furious, calculating. This is fraud, he said. You did this to cheat us out of what is rightfully ours. Ours, I repeated. This house has been in my family for 4 generations. You have known my daughter for 8 months. Nothing about this house has ever been yours. Martin the notary stood up abruptly. I think I should leave. This is not what I was told. He gathered his things and headed for the door. I am not participating in anything questionable. Sit down, Derek snapped. We are not done here. But Martin was already gone, the front door closing behind him with a decisive click. Derek and I faced each other across the coffee table, the pretense of family finally stripped away. You think you are clever, Derek said. You think you have won. But I will fight this. I will get lawyers. I will prove you were not of sound mind when you created this trust. I remained calm. Go ahead. Samuel Bennett has been my attorney for 30 years. Every document is in order. Every signature is witnessed. You will spend a fortune on legal fees and get nothing. Derek took a step toward me, his fists clenched. I felt a flicker of fear, but held my ground. I had faced worse than angry men in my 62 years. That was when Meredith appeared at the top of the stairs. What is going on? She asked, her voice groggy. She was still in her robe hair, messy from sleep. She must have let herself in the back door while we were talking. She had a key, of course. This had been her home too. Derek immediately changed his demeanor, the charm sliding back into place like a mask. Honey, your mother is being difficult. She does not want to sign the house over to us, like we discussed. Meredith came down the stairs slowly, looking between us. We never discussed this, Derek. What are you talking about? Of course we did. Remember I mentioned getting her affairs in order? No. Meredith shook her head. You mentioned it to me once and I said it was too soon. I said we should wait. Derek's jaw tightened. Well, I thought I would take care of it. Surprise you? By bringing a notary to my mother's house the morning after our wedding, without telling me. For the first time, I saw doubt in Meredith's eyes. She was looking at Derek differently, seeing something she had missed before. I knew this was the moment I had been preparing for. "Meredith," I said gently, "there is something you need to know." I told her everything. The phone call I had overheard. The words Derek had said the old lady has no idea, we sell and split the profit. I told her about Tyler's research, the bankruptcy, the fake company, the mountain of debt. I told her about the trust I had created and why. Meredith listened in silence, her face growing paler with each revelation. When I finished, she turned to Derek. "Is this true?" Derek laughed dismissively. "She is making it up. She has always hated me." "Then explain the phone call. Explain why you brought a notary here without my knowledge. Explain why you are so desperate to get this house in your name." Derek opened his mouth closed. It opened it again. For a long moment he said nothing, and then the mask fell away completely. "Fine," he said, his voice cold. "You want the truth." "Yes, I wanted the house." Meredith flinched like she had been slapped. "Do you have any idea what this place is worth?" Derek continued, his voice rising. "Over $1 million. I was not going to wait around for your mother to die. That could take years." Meredith's hand flew to her mouth. "I thought I could speed things along, get her to sign it over, convince her she was too old to manage it. Then we sell, take the money, and start fresh somewhere else." "You never loved me," Meredith whispered. Derek shrugged a cruel gesture. "I liked you well enough. You were convenient. A lonely woman desperate for love with a rich mother and a big house. It was perfect. Or it would have been if your mother was not so paranoid." Meredith was crying now, silent tears streaming down her face. Derek turned to me, his expression ugly. "You think you have won, old woman. But I will make your lives miserable. I will drag this through court for years. I will take everything I can." I walked to the front door and opened it wide. "Get out of my house," I said. "Now." Derek grabbed his briefcase and stormed toward the door. But before he left, he turned back one more time. "This is not over," he said. And then he was gone. Meredith collapsed onto the couch, sobbing. I sat beside her and held her the way I had when she was a little girl, with a scraped knee, rocking her gently, letting her cry. "I am so stupid," she said between sobs. "How could I not see it?" "You are not stupid," I told her. "He is a professional liar. Men like him make a living deceiving people. You wanted to believe in love. There is nothing wrong with that. Why did you not tell me sooner?" I pulled back and looked at her, wiping the tears from her cheeks. "Would you have believed me?" She was quiet for a long moment. Then slowly she shook her head. "I needed you to see it for yourself," I said. "I am sorry it had to hurt this much." Meredith leaned against me, and we sat there together as the morning light filled the room. The house was quiet around us, solid and unchanged, filled with the memories of everyone who had ever loved within its walls. Derek was gone. And despite everything, we had survived. The weeks that followed were difficult, but Meredith is stronger than she knows. She filed for divorce immediately. Since the marriage had lasted less than 24 hours before the confrontation, and since they had no shared assets, the process was relatively straightforward. Derek tried to contest it, demanded spousal support, made threats and accusations. But without leverage, without the house, he had counted on his bluster meant nothing. Samuel Bennett handled everything with quiet efficiency. He also helped me file a report with the police about Derek's attempted fraud. I was not sure anything would come of it, but I wanted it on record. It turned out I was not Derek's first victim. The police investigation uncovered 2 other women Derek had targeted over the past decade. A widow in Florida who had lost her home. A divorcee in Georgia who had signed over her savings. Both had been too ashamed to press charges, too embarrassed to admit they had been conned. But when they learned about my case, They came forward. With 3 victims willing to testify, the prosecutor built a solid case. Derek was arrested and charged with fraud, attempted elder abuse, and theft by deception. He hired a fancy lawyer, tried to talk his way out of it, but the evidence was overwhelming. In the end, he pleaded guilty to avoid a longer sentence. He got 3 years in prison and was ordered to pay restitution to all his victims. It was not enough, not really, but it was something. It was justice. Meredith moved back home during this time. She needed to be somewhere safe, somewhere familiar, and I was grateful for her company. The house felt alive again, filled with footsteps and conversation, and the smell of coffee in the morning. The first few weeks were hard. Meredith barely came out of her room, ashamed and heartbroken. She kept apologizing, kept saying she should have known, should have listened to her instincts. I told her every day that it was not her fault that predators like Derek were skilled at manipulation, that being trusting was not a character flaw. Slowly, she started to heal. She began seeing a therapist, working through the betrayal and the shame. She reconnected with old friends she had neglected during her whirlwind relationship with Derek. She started taking long walks in the neighborhood, visiting Gloria for tea, helping me in the garden. One afternoon, I found her sitting on the back porch, looking out at the yard where her failed wedding had taken place. "I used to love this garden," she said. "Now I just see that day. I see him." I sat down beside her. "Then we need to make new memories," I said. "Good ones. This garden has seen generations of our family. It has seen births and deaths, celebrations and sorrows. It has survived everything, and so will we." Meredith looked at me, and for the first time in weeks, she smiled. We spent that weekend planting new flowers, rearranging the beds, adding a little fountain we found at an estate sale. By the time we finished, the garden looked different. Fresh, ready for whatever came next. Meredith eventually moved into her own apartment, a nice place just 15 minutes from my house. She threw herself into her work, earned a promotion, started volunteering at a center that helped women who had been victims of financial abuse. She turned her pain into purpose, and I could not have been prouder. Our relationship grew stronger through all of this. We had always been close, but now there was a deeper understanding between us. She had seen me fight for our family, and I had seen her rebuild herself from betrayal. We were partners in a way we had never been before. One evening, about a year after the divorce was finalized, Meredith came to dinner with news. "Mom," she said, her eyes bright. "I met someone." My first reaction was fear, but I pushed it down and listened. His name was Wesley. He was a pediatrician, kind and soft-spoken, with a gentle sense of humor. Meredith had met him through her volunteer work. He had been donating his time at the center, providing medical care to women and children in need. "I was careful," Mom, Meredith assured me. "We have been dating for 6 months. I did not tell you because I wanted to be sure. I wanted to know he was real. I asked to meet him, and she agreed." Wesley came to dinner the following Sunday. He was nothing like Derek. Where Derek had been flashy and charming, Wesley was quiet and genuine. He asked about my life, my teaching career, my memories of Harold. He complimented the food, helped clear the dishes, and did not once mention the house or its value. After dinner, while Meredith was in the kitchen, Wesley turned to me. "Mrs. Harriet," he said, "I know Meredith has been through a lot. I know you have reason not to trust me, but I want you to know that I love your daughter. Not for what she has or what she might inherit. I love her for who she is. I would marry her if she lived in a cardboard box." I looked into his eyes and saw only sincerity. "That is all I needed to hear," I told him. They got engaged 6 months later after a full year of dating. Meredith was cautious, protective of her heart, and Wesley was patient. He never pushed, never pressured, never made her feel rushed. When he proposed, he said, "I do not care where we live. I just want to be with you." Meredith called me in tears. Happy tears this time, real tears. And I cried too, because my daughter had finally found what she deserved. 3 years have passed since Derek walked out of my house for the last time. I am 65 now, and life has settled into a peaceful rhythm. The house still stands beautiful and solid, its Victorian bones as strong as ever. I had the roof replaced last spring and built a little greenhouse in the backyard where I grow tomatoes and herbs year-round. Gloria still comes over for tea every afternoon, and we laugh about how dramatic our lives have become in our golden years. The trust remains in place, protecting the house for future generations. Samuel Bennett retired last year, but his son has taken over the practice and keeps everything in order. Patricia is still a trustee, healthy and sharp as ever, ready to defend our family's legacy. Derek served his full sentence. I heard through the grapevine that he moved to another state after his release, probably looking for new victims in a place where no one knows his name. I try not to think about him. He took enough of my energy already. Meredith and Wesley got married last spring, right here in the backyard garden. It was a small ceremony, just family and close friends. Nothing like the elaborate affair she had planned with Derek. But it was real, every smile was genuine, every tear was happy, every word meant something. Wesley looked at Meredith like she was the most precious thing in the world. And when they said their vows, I finally felt the weight lift from my shoulders. My daughter was safe. She was loved. She was home. They live about 20 minutes away now in a cozy house they bought together. Meredith still comes over every Sunday for dinner, and Wesley joins her when his hospital schedule allows. We cook together, share stories, tend the garden. Sometimes I catch Meredith looking around the house with a new appreciation, understanding now what it represents, what I fought to protect. I used to take this place for granted, she told me recently. I thought it would always just be here. I did not understand what you went through to keep it in our family. I took her hand. It was never about the house, really. It was about protecting what matters. You matter. Our family matters. The house is just walls and a roof. The important thing is what happens inside it. She squeezed my hand and smiled. Last month, Meredith told me she is pregnant. My first grandchild due in the fall. A new generation for this old house, new laughter to fill its rooms, new memories to add to the ones already soaked into its walls. I have started going through the attic, sorting through boxes of photographs and keepsakes, preparing to share our family history with this new little person. There are pictures of my grandparents on their wedding day, of my parents as children of Harold and me, dancing at our anniversary party. There are report cards and love letters and pressed flowers from gardens long since replanted. All of it will belong to my grandchild someday. All of it was worth protecting. People ask me sometimes if I regret not telling Meredith sooner about Derek. If I feel guilty for letting her walk into that marriage knowing it would fail, I tell them no. Meredith needed to see the truth with her own eyes. She needed to hear Derek's cruelty, to feel his betrayal, to understand exactly who he was. If I had told her before the wedding, she would have defended him. She would have blamed me. She would have married him anyway, and the confrontation would have come later, after he had done real damage. By letting Derek make his move, I gave Meredith the clarity she needed. It was painful, yes, but it was also necessary. Sometimes protecting the people we love means letting them get hurt in small ways to prevent them from being destroyed in big ways. It is not easy, it is not painless, but it is the truth. I think about Derek sometimes late at night when the house is quiet. I do not hate him anymore. Hate takes too much energy, too much space in the heart. He was a small broken man who tried to take what was not his, and he failed. That is enough. What I feel now is gratitude. Gratitude for this house, for my daughter, for the new family growing inside her. Gratitude for friends like Gloria, for professionals like Samuel, who helped me protect what matters. Gratitude for the chance to grow old in the place where I was born, surrounded by love and memory and hope. The morning Derek came to my door with that notary, he thought he had won. He thought an old woman like me would be easy to manipulate, easy to fool, easy to rob. He underestimated me. He underestimated the strength that comes from generations of women who built something worth keeping. I am not naive. I am not weak. And I will never let anyone take what my family has protected for 100 years. This house has seen 4 generations of my family. God willing, it will see many more. Because some things are worth fighting for. This home, this family, this love that refuses to die no matter how many storms try to destroy it, that is worth everything. So here is my question for you. Have you ever had someone in your life who was not who they claimed to be? Have you ever had to trust your instincts even when everyone around you thought you were wrong? I would love to hear your story in the comments below. If this story touched you, please hit that like button and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe to this channel for more stories about family resilience and the strength we find when we need it most. And remember, your home is not just a building. It is everything you love and everything worth protecting. Thank you for watching, and thank you for being part of this community. May you always have the wisdom to see the truth, the courage to act on it, and a home filled with people who love you for exactly who you are. Until next time, take care of yourselves and each other.